Hello, Melissa, the chief penguin in the house.
Yep, that's true. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, fabulous. And in fact, opposite to many of the speakers we have here who tend to be global shapers, Forbes 30 and the 30, I've never met in my life. They're just very kind people who like to share wisdom stories. We do know each other now for many years, and your life story is incredible, like the work you were doing with Microsoft, with United Nations, and now at IBM. When I saw the chief penguin title, I couldn't hold back the laugh because it is
Right?
cognitive dissonance with the IBM and chief penguins. Like, how does that work? But
Yep, yep.
sure, you have so
I
many
think
years
from
of
the
it.
outside, sometimes even before I joined IBM, I always saw IBM as this, for lack of better words, I thought it was a stodgy organization where everybody dressed the same, which I think that was a thing at one period in time. And I had this really massive different view of what IBM actually is. I've been able to create my own job title, and people actually use it. It's in our corporate directory. If you're an employee and you search for me and look for my contact details and my kind of structure, when it comes to who I report to and that sort of thing. And I've actually created my job 2 times over. So my own job title, my own job description, and combined both my purpose and passion together. And I kind of toyed around with talking about a couple of different things today, because I do a lot of skill building with young people and students, and as well as early stage entrepreneurs. And I thought that today it would be a really good time. And I kind of toyed around with, do I want to talk about digital skill building? Do I want to talk about, how do you craft your own career? And I kind of went more toward, how do you craft your own career based on your purpose and passion? So that's what I've got to share with you today, if that's okay.
Yeah, fantastic. And by choosing chief penguin as a title, if IBM ever opens an office in Antarctica, you're just a shoe in to get the top job, right?
For sure. Maybe even all over the world. Who knows? As I was listening to the last speaker, which who did a great job of talking about personal branding, and I heard the opportunity to do a workshop. I'd love to talk to you more about that. So I wanted to just first off raise my hand and
Look,
say that if there are opportunities on the horizon to do workshops together, I've got a lot of really interesting things that we could do, and it could even be a series.
fantastic. We would love to discuss. So we can have a call after or next
Good.
week, whatever's more convenient for you.
Awesome. Cool. So with that, let me first off introduce myself, how I fit into the world, both professionally and personally. So as you heard from Marcelo, I am the chief penguin of IBM Z. IBM Z is a division within IBM that focuses on our infrastructure, if you will, and we provide technical solutions to many of the world's largest companies. We also have a new cloud solution that is available in the cloud that is all about data protection, privacy, and security. So when I first came to IBM, which was in January of 2019, my kind of core responsibility was to create a new startup program. And I was asked to bring 15 startups onto our platform in some way, shape, or form. And, so I'm very much an innovator. I'm very much a creator. I'm a maker. I'm a doer. And I really thought about, what is it that I wanted to create? I created an accelerator program called the IBM Hyperprotect Accelerator. We focus on fintech, health tech, and insurtech startups. They get up to $120,000 in cloud credits. So that's essentially up to $10,000 a month. And why I say up to is because you're allotted with $10,000 each month for a year. But if, let's say, one of the months or all of the months, you don't go up to that 10K, it doesn't roll over month. I also focus on the digital assets space. So I think there are many things that you and I have to talk about, because I think there are many incredible opportunities for those that are working in the crypto space as well when it comes to my technology. We provide 2 years of technical mentorship. So how do you onboard into the cloud? How do you think about incorporating, AI, machine learning, Watson Health, for example, so IBM products, if you will. And then 1 year of business mentorship. And that happens through a social impact accelerator called Village Capital. I'll have some links that I'll share in my presentation in just a bit. I also am responsible for student experience globally within IBM Z. So that means empowering young people, empowering students of all ages with the skills to make the necessary skills to make meaningful use of the internet, if you will. So knowing how to code and utilizing IBM technology. And it's all about, empowering students to be future ready. I don't just focus on technical skills. I also think about what are those necessary building blocks that are required for the future of work, whether that's innovation, creativity, adaptability, the art of persuasion. I think I mentioned innovation and creativity. In case I forgot, I'm saying it again because I forgot which ones I mentioned already. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I also am the chair of the IEEE Digital Skills and Readiness Working Group, and our team essentially created the first IEEE world standard for what it means to be digitally literate. Went through the standards board and all of that. Lastly, I'll share that I am the CEO and founder of a youth-led nonprofit that's based out of Tunis, Tunisia. We have taught tens of thousands of young people to code in 12 countries. So I not only focus on youth empowerment, gender inclusion, quality education from a professional perspective, but also from a personal perspective. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to share my screen. Can you give me the rights to share my screen, Marcella? Again, I'm Melissa Sassi, the Chief Penguin of IBM Z, and I head up student and entrepreneur experience globally within IBM Z. We're going to talk about how to rock your purpose-driven career. You can find me on Twitter at Mentor Africa with a K. So I look forward to engaging with all of you there. And as our last speaker mentioned, it's, social media is important, and this is where you can find me. Enter at your own risk. All right, so my purpose and passion is really about the intersection of tech, entrepreneurship, and empowering underrepresented rockstar youth to make meaningful use of the internet. And I believe in being what I call as being an and not an or. And that means you defining what it is that you want to be. I'm a founder, I'm an entrepreneur, meaning I innovate inside of someone else's company. I'm also an entrepreneur. I'm a digital inclusion advocate. I'm an IBMer. I'm an ex-Microsoftie. I used to build internet and energy access solutions at Microsoft. I did a stint on Wall Street, spent some time at Goldman Sachs, as well as BlackRock. I'm an active speaker with the UN. I've probably done about, I don't know, maybe 20 UN talks in my lifetime. Same thing with the World Economic Forum. And I already talked about my work within the IEEE. Lastly, I am working on my PhD, and I'm at the tail end of my PhD. I focus on the digital inclusion of underserved and underrepresented communities from a research perspective. Should be defending my my research very soon. So this year I'll be able to call myself Dr. Sassi, which is very exciting for me. I'll be the first doctor in my family. So first thing is making the impossible possible. And this is something that I strive to do. And I believe that you are the only one, and you are the only thing standing in between the current you and the future you. So now we're going to talk about how do you define your own purpose-driven career. Step one is really defining your vision. And that means being unique, being you, being an and, not an or, really figuring out what is your passion. And I say, imagine the wild duck in you. So thinking about how can you figure out, what your, vision is, And the next thing is, do you have a passion? You know, what is that passion? Some of us may know, some of us may not know. I think the UN Sustainable Development Goals are a great place to look if you're not sure. Which one fires you up? I get fired up about quality education, gender equality, decent work, and economic growth. Those are my three. Naturally, I find I'm interested in all of them, but those are the three that wake me up in the morning. You want to document your gaps. So, you know, again, first step, defining your vision, figuring out what you're passionate about, and then you're documenting your gaps. And that means being a learn-it-all. That means finding kindred spirits. And that means being willing to invest in that future you. You give yourself space and time. You're not automatically just going to end up in your own purpose-driven career because you want it. It's going to take time. You're going to need to prioritize and organize yourself, think and reflect, but be mindful. And again, you've got your vision, you've got your plan and your gaps, and you're thinking about how do you also be patient. Here's where we're coming up with our plan. And you need to own your path. Nobody's going to own it for you. Nobody's going to put you in the job that you want to be on or be in. It takes work. You need to establish goals and a timeline. And also think about taking baby steps. Again, it's not automatically going to happen to you where all of a sudden you create your own, you know, your own future overnight. You want to go beyond your day job. And for those of you who are not working yet, it's really thinking about going beyond your studies. It's going beyond your everyday. It's taking on stretch assignments so that you can learn and explore. It may be volunteering with a startup that aligns to your purpose and passion, or it may be volunteering with a nonprofit, again, that aligns to your purpose and passion. It's gathering your squad. It's thinking about, you know, who is that, what I call who's in your Thrive Hive. It's seeking bite-sized insights from those individuals. It's reciprocating, and it's being a friend. You're going to document your journey. You're going to build your personal brand, as we heard about previously. You're going to be present offline and online. And as you're doing it, you're going to be inclusive. So again, you're telling others about what you're working on, what you're doing. You're engaging in public speaking if and when possible. You're writing content and you're sharing more about your own personal journey and what you're learning. Step 8 is doing the thing. And what I mean by that is you're learning, you're creating, you're changing the world, and you're actually doing the thing that you want to do. All right, so join me. Empower youth to code, inspire startups to build and scale. And you can find me again at Mentor Africa with a K. You can read more about my startup program here, ibm.biz/HPA-apply. We're on a road to 100 startups. So I've got 45 startups in my program now, and we're adding another 55. So you can read more about the program here. We're on a road to including 10,000 students in our student hub. So for those of you who are looking to engage more, to take part in my events, to learn more, whether that's about the future of work or to learn to code, you can find us at ibm.biz/student hub. Thank you very much for taking the time to hear me out today. I appreciate it. I hope that this was both insightful and interesting for you.
Well,
Any questions, Marcelo?
Yeah, I mean, we could sort of hit the rewind button pretty hard and go back when you became a teenager. And how did you start firing that furnace, right? What were your personal motivations? That family, friends?
I didn't know a thing about who I was, you know. When I was a teenager, I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. I didn't become comfortable in my own skin and really know my strengths and what I brought to the world until I turned 40. I know that sounds really scary, because for those of you who are way off from 40, it sounds like, oh gosh, it's going to take that long. And many of us find out who we are much sooner, but me, I didn't. I didn't figure out who I was or what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be until I was 40 years old. I'm 45 now, believe it or not. A lot of people often say, wow, I can't believe you're 40. I'm very thankful that my family gave me good skin. That said,
you
yeah,
chose
go ahead.
parents carefully.
Yeah. But my purpose and passion came about after my personal tragedy. The worst thing that could ever happen to someone happened to me. And what happened was I had 3 children who were all victims of parental kidnapping. And so what that means is my ex-husband actually kidnapped our children, brought them to his country, and I could not get them back. That happened about 10 years ago.
Right.
And I woke up one day and I found myself, in a very different world. I went from being a mom who, worked full time and, did things that moms do, and I went from that to a quiet house with just me and my thoughts. And I never was able to get my children back to my home country, which is in the United States. I ended up teaching myself how to speak Tunisian Arabic, my ex-husband's dialect. And I ended up realizing that my connection to my kids was through the internet and through connectivity and through digital skills and through them having, access to devices. I was a digital mother, so to speak, because I didn't think it made sense for me to move to the country where they were for a variety of reasons. I see them often, we're very close, and they will come back to me when they're old enough to choose for themselves and are finished with their school. So it will be on their terms and their terms alone, because of, again, a variety of factors that didn't enable me to bring them back in a legal fashion. One day my daughter was telling me, she said, "Mommy, I'm learning Microsoft." And this is when I was working at Microsoft, that's her accent. And I realized she was learning Word in the classroom, and they only had one computer for all the class and everybody shared. And I thought, wow, how can my daughter be prepared for the future of work without having access to the basics of what it means to be, digitally connected? And that's having a device with internet access. And she had them at home, but I thought, wow, how are these kids, going to be able to thrive if they, are not able to create and make and do on their own with their own hands? And so my work ended up becoming something where I brought 400 laptops to 20 schools, funded by Microsoft and HP. And I ended up being able to take a few weeks off of work, and I traveled around the country teaching kids to code. And I realized that it was something that I was both passionate about, interested in, and it allowed me to take my pain and put it into something more productive, something that involved empowering the world. And it was a big, wicked problem to solve. And I knew that it was so big and hairy, I couldn't do it alone. And so I set out on this mission to make the world more digitally inclusive and to make meaningful use of the internet. So I was able to transition my career at Microsoft into one that involved building internet connectivity and bringing digital skills to the newly connected. And then I've been able to transform my career again to focus on economic empowerment of, early stage founders along with digital skill building. So this thing, I guess, helped me to figure out who I was, what I was passionate about, and how I could incorporate that into something that wasn't just healing for me, but something that would empower the world around me as well. So that's where my stuff came from, but at a late age, instead of, knowing things and having it all figured out as a teenager.
Well, it's both deeply sad and fascinating, because this pave the path to the United Nations and all the work you're
Yeah.
doing, the
Yeah.
recognition is something that you deeply care about.
Yeah,
And
yeah, and I think everybody's got a founder story. Even if you're not a founder, everybody has a founder story. Yours may not be based on tragedy. It may be just be an experience or something you've seen or felt. In terms of a problem that you want to solve. But this is the problem that speaks to me, and this is my life's work.
yeah, it's really remarkable because it's coping with grief, and you coped in
Mhm.
an extremely positive and constructive way rather than just sulking. And oh,
It was hard for a long time. I will tell you, for 5 of the last 10 years in the beginning, of course, losing your loved ones, or these kinds of awful things that happen in life, it takes time to get over it. And there were times where I didn't have very productive outlets, and I didn't go down the right path. But I'm thankful that I stumbled upon this thing, and this thing spoke to me. I realized I was good at it, and I realized that I could make a difference by taking, the educational background that I have and building it into something that, helped me manage my grief. Of course, I'm still sad, and there's not a day that I, don't wake up and feel, just pain in my soul. But how do I turn it into something that is bigger than me, and, you know, not let it destroy my life, because it easily could have. And there were many times where it actually did. But thankfully, I made it out of the trenches, and, can talk about it today in a positive fashion, versus, crying over what I could have been or should have been or would have been.
well, your case is quite thorny in the sense that there's no real closure, right? It's ongoing, right?
Mhm.
You have to dynamically adapt as they grow and keep the relationship alive and healthy.
Yeah.
My parallel story is, in fact, that I created my first nonprofit when my father passed away. And he
Hmm.
was 83 years old then, but it was a complete surprise. Like my grandmother, his mother, lived until she was 103.
Wow,
So
that's
we have
wild.
a pretty decent benchmark of, okay, no, here's a son,
Hmm.
someone who lived until past 100. He is not very healthy. He was a little bit on the heavy side, not really taking great care of himself. But yeah, no, it should be okay to get to 90, right? If you discount a few years.
You never know what's going to happen in life, right? Like, hey, something awful can happen to me 5 minutes after, hopefully not, 5 minutes after we have a conversation. You just never know what the future holds for you.
Or maybe you're going to open the door and there's a cat wearing a unicorn staring at
Hey, right?
you. So it could also be something very positive. But it's literally what drove me. In the last time we met, I had this massive beard, like a pet growing on my face.
I remember that. I don't know what's going on now because I can't see your camera, but that's okay. I accept you still.
No, and now I'm back to looking like a normal human being.
I liked the beard though. It was a lot of fun.
It was significant. I mean, I used to joke saying that because I traveled so much, I couldn't have a cat or a dog at home, so I always carried one on my face. So when I
I
felt
like
like
it.
petting something fluffy, it was there with me all the time. But
I like
that,
it. That's
that was in
awesome.
fact mourning. Like I was wearing that thing for 5.5, 6 years,
Yeah.
mourning the passing of my father. And the way that it transformed into something positive, and this is kind of a topic that is of relevance to teenagers as well, because you always have grief, loss, and mourning when you're in that age group, whatever that means. It could be a pet, right? But you're still going through a similar emotional process. And what happened was that I inherited a few flats in Rio, nothing too fancy, but because of the Olympic Games, they increased in value tremendously. So I decided that that was not really mine, right? I had never done anything to deserve it. So I sold all of them. And this is how I financed my last 6 years doing nonprofit work. I felt that I had to give it back to society, that if I waited until be into my 60s and 70s, nah, you're never going to have the same level of energy. You're never going to have enough time to see it coming to fruition, to develop to a level that you can really feel comfortable with other people taking it over and taking it to new directions. Like, okay, I have this chance right now. This is a very a strong sign. And a little bit, as in your case, I decided to turn something very negative into something very positive. It's all energy in the end of the day, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's interesting because it's probably a common thread, and people who
Mhm.
manage to do unusual things, whatever they happen to be, they probably had a jolt, like they were shocked somehow. Because if your life is too easy, it's just like, okay, no, we just sort of go with the flow, and you kind of go to the office and you know what to expect. And all of a sudden, you don't realize that the years are passing and you just spending your time doing the same things, which may be very enjoyable. And this also applies to teenagers, right? You're playing your video games, but you're overplaying your video games. It's not like you learning from multiple experiences, or you're going from playing at home to playing with your neighborhood to going to a national championship, which is fine. It's all playing games, but you're growing, right? You're learning how to cope with more complex scenarios and achieving different emotions, and also building the ability to share that value with someone else. So
Mhm.
the fact that you need to get to your comfort zone is very relevant. And from that lesson, in the picture you have of me here in Zoom, is on the summit of Mont Blanc, right?
Oh,
So
so cool.
I summited it solo last September,
Yeah.
starting from the lowest possible point, so just to make it as difficult as possible. And I did that after fasting for 50 days. So I ate 0 calories for 7 weeks and one day, like a
That
Buddha.
takes a lot of perseverance. I'm not sure that I could do that. I climbed a volcano in Bali
Oh, no.
went during the Arab Spring, because my flight was canceled when I was supposed to travel to Tunisia, because, well, that's the home of the Jasmine Revolution and what
Yeah.
created the Arab Spring, and I was
The,
looking for
tra-
something
the
that I
travel
could.
agency was on top of the volcano. What's the connection?
I ate an egg on top of a volcano. So I climbed 10,000 feet with a guide who was wearing flip-flops. I don't know how he did it, but I think he's been doing it since he was a kid. And I cooked an egg on top of the volcano, and then we climbed back down. So in that volcano, I think it erupted last year, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
That'd be
yeah.
fun, actually.
How to climb a volcano with a dude in a pair of flip-flops. All right, awesome. Thank you very much for having me today. I wish all of you who are listening and watching to take these skills that you're learning and put them to use in your corner of the earth. Figure out how you can find your purpose and your passion. Thank you again for having me.